All right. Well, for this episode, I'm going to let you kind of steer the boat and
All
give
right.
us 3 tips for how to win your disability case.
All right. These aren't the only tips, but if I was to put them on a totem pole, they'd be at the tip or toppermost.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one tip is to get in and stay in regular treatment. If you have a back disorder or really any kind of orthopedic disorder, you need to be seeing somebody and telling them, I have difficulty standing, I have difficulties walking, I have difficulties lifting and carrying. If you have some, carpal tunnel or some other kind of peripheral neuropathy, this messing with your hands and your feet. You need to talk to your doctor about, listen, I'm having difficulties buttoning my shirt. I'm having difficulty zipping up my pants, tying my shoes. Treatment, treatment, treatment. And we've talked about this before. The way that we win a disability case is by citing the treatment records. Mr. Jones says that he's disabled because of degenerative disc disease in his lumbar spine. The medical record shows that Mr. Jones has been showing to his doctor 5 or 6 times a year for the last couple of years, complaining of problems standing and walking, lifting and carrying, and that if he does walk for more than 20 minutes at a time, he's on the couch for the next 3 hours. Medical records show that. Yeah, medical records show that. And the X-ray that they get shows moderate to severe degenerative disc disease at L4, L5, S1, which are your vertebrae.
Yeah.
Or it might be in your cervical spine, and then you have problems with your upper extremities. But those kinds of things, if I can find them in the case record, that's my proof.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the judges, when they ask me to present a case, they'll say something along the lines of, Mr. Groves, put on your proof. And that means for me, okay, I'm going to probably give you an opening statement of why I believe, my client is disabled. And then I'm going to cite the medical records that I feel support that. And if there's an opinion in the file, Dr. Jones's, or Mr. Jones's doctor, Dr. Smith, finds that he would not be able to, lift and carry more than 10 pounds. He wouldn't be able to be on his feet for very long. And if you add everything up, he wouldn't even be able to make it through an 8-hour workday. And we find, Your Honor, that this demonstrates that my client is disabled. Here's a lumbar X-ray from such and such date. I'm putting on the proof. I'm citing the evidence, which I believe supports my client not being able to work. Mental health, no different whatsoever. No difference whatsoever. They've been going to a therapist, 5 or 6 times a year. They go in there and they talk about how they're having problems with concentration. They're having problems staying on task. They're having problems, being around other people. They have really kind of been ostracized from their family because they've, they're irrationally irritable. Their family don't want to be around them. Why are you angry all the time? I don't know why I'm angry all the time. Why did you lash out at me? I don't know why I lashed out at you. It's part of the disease. Anxiety attack. How many anxiety attacks, are you having? And the medical records show that you're having anxiety attack, once or twice a week. Think you could work with an anxiety attack happening once or twice a week? Nope. I wouldn't hire you. Sorry. Not if you're having, that. First of all, you're going to be out of pocket for a while. And my other employees that see it, it's kind of a traumatic thing to witness. Or, God forbid, the customers coming in, the general public coming in,
Yeah.
and they see you, have an anxiety attack, it reflects poorly on my business. And what would happen? The boss is going to fire you. So number one on the totem pole, way at the tip or toppermost, is getting in regular treatment and staying in regular treatment. Now, we always get pushback on this from our clients who don't have money, or they live out in a rural area and they can't get to a facility or treatment that's near them. That's just, or they don't have transportation. And as cold and heartless as it is for me to say this, and I don't mean to be cold or heartless, just because you can't does not at all alter the fact that Social Security expects you to. So if you don't have any money, health departments. Most states will have some kind of mental health program if you don't have any money that you can get in some kind of treatment. Health departments, they're probably not going to buy X-rays for you because they don't like spending money at all. But at least we'll have some kind of record that you've gone in and you've complained about your conditions. We have to have something. And again, as heartless and cold as it sounds for me to say this, and I'm just speaking from 35 years of experience, judges don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, they might care, but from a legal standpoint, we are expected to prove your case. Okay? They haven't been in treatment for 2 years, Mr. Groves. Can you explain that? Well, they live out in the boonies. They haven't been in treatment for 2 years, Mr. Groves. Can you explain that? Well, they don't have transportation. What is the proof that I need to look at to favorably decide your client's case, Mr. Groves? Well, what am I going to do? That's when when I drop my head, I'm like, and so I understand that there are going to be times when you can't do that, but it'll really, really serve you if you realize that Social Security, they're just not going to take that as an excuse. Well, I don't have money. I don't have transportation. I live way out. Okay, and their position is this, and I'll end my number one with this. Their position is, oh, so you're disabled, and the definition of disability for this program is you're unable to do any kind of work on a sustained basis, and this condition you have is going to last at least 12 consecutive months, or it's going to result in your death. That's really severe. Can you explain to me, if your condition is that severe, why aren't you seeing anybody? And I'm sorry, transportation, I live out in the boonies, I don't have money. Those will go nowhere in your disability case. And again, it might sound heartless and it might sound cold, but it's just the truth.
Yeah, because those are good reasons just in general. If we're just being rational, I mean, if you don't have transportation, you don't have money, and you don't have insurance,
right?
In general, if we were just talking, friend to friend, that makes sense. So it is a good reason, but it's not gonna cut it for your Social Security case.
It's not gonna go anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna look at that and be like, oh, okay, well then, because there's nothing else. If they don't use the medical evidence, what are they going to use? There's really, you can have you can have an MSS that has to be from the provider, and then you can have the medical records themselves that have to be from the provider, but it all has to point toward what's actually going on here.
Right.
Yeah, and then another thing, what you were saying is regular treatment. Keyword there is regular, or keyword is ongoing treatment. I talked to a lot of clients that they stopped working, say 2 years ago, a year ago or 2 years ago, and they were telling me about degenerative disc disease is one of the main things keeping them out of work. Arthritis in their knees. Maybe they had like a rotator cuff surgery, torn rotator cuff, but they had these surgeries like in the 90s.
Sure.
They had these surgeries 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We're not really interested in that, because if you have a surgery, say you're unable to work in 1999 and you have a surgery for it, and then you work from 2001 to 2021, you've already proven that you weren't disabled in that period.
That's right.
Because if you were disabled, you wouldn't be working full time. Right. And so
you had that condition, but it wasn't disabled.
Exactly. So ongoing treatment, we say that specifically because if you don't have treatment now, you really can't supplement that for treatment that you had 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It needs to actually be relevant for your case.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's just ongoing treatment. It's almost damaging to your case to have, you saw a doctor suspiciously a month after you signed with Disability Consulting. And
for the first time in 6 years.
Yeah. And then since that time to the time the case has wended its way through an initial denial, and we appealed it, and a reconsideration denial, and we appealed it, and now we're in front of a judge. And the judge is looking at it and said, okay, well, you didn't have any treatment for about 5 years. You signed with this firm, about 14 months ago. Where's the treatment since that 14 months ago one visit you made? And it's happened, and it doesn't embarrass me. It makes me sad for my client, but they'll say something like, well, Mr. Groves told me when I first, signed with his firm that I had to get treatment. So, I went in and saw my doctor. Mm-hmm. But did you continue?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any money, or, I don't have any transportation, or you had something that you went there and you had that one visit. And now what it looks like is, maybe you were trying to not deceive Social Security, but you're trying to check a box, and that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I had my one visit, because my representative told me I had to. What about your health condition? Wouldn't it make more sense? Like, because of my health condition, I've been seeing this doctor, once every 2 months or whatever. But yeah it's ongoing treatment, tipper topper of the totem pole. That's the number one thing that is going to help you and me win your case.
Yeah. And then real quick, and then I'll let you get to the second thing. For mental health, telehealth is huge.
Oh, sure.
Over the phones. Yeah. A lot of people think, you can't use your transportation excuse if it's telehealth anyway. A lot of people think that, well, I got to get referred to this psychologist, I got to drive 15 miles. It's like there's a lot of free mental health treatment in most states.
And they'll call
Yep.
call in your prescriptions
Yep, there
to
you
a really local, a really close drugstore to, absolutely.
Yeah, so telehealth totally counts.
Sure.
That's,
Absolutely. It's treatment. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
All right. What's number 2?
Number 2 is right below treatment is a cooperative spirit. And that doesn't mean that I want you to be, full of sunshine and butterflies. But it does mean that if I or the Social Security Administration ask you to do something, you're going to cooperate with it. The kinds of things that I'm going to ask you to do is go to and stay in treatment. I'm going to ask you to, keep in regular contact with me. We're going to reach out to you regularly, but I love it when my clients call me. I know a lot of firms don't, but that's not me. Keeping in contact with me. If we ask you, just talk to your doctor and see if he'll get a medical source statement. Cooperate with us on that. And we've talked about trusting the process. Absolutely. Trust us. We've been doing this a long, long time. We win a lot of cases, and there is a reason that we win these cases. It's, if you trust us and you do what we ask you to do, your chances skyrocket of winning. And cooperating with Social Security. We've seen this in the last, basically since COVID, so the last 5 years or so, that it's absolutely become an epidemic. It's a horrible, horrible problem. And that is, I'm not going to fill out any forms. What? No, I don't want to fill out any forms. Okay. I'm not going to go to the exam that Social Security is scheduled for me. What? Why aren't you doing it? I just don't feel like doing that. I've told them I'm disabled. And doggone it, they just got to believe me. Really? I mean, do you operate with that kind of naivete in the rest of your life? No. You would never expect that from somebody else. Why are you expecting Social Security to take your word for it? You got to prove your case. That's just the way the program was designed. And cooperating means I'm going to send in the forms, and we're going to talk about that because number 3 is that. I'm going to send in the forms. I'm going to send them in when they tell me I have to. They give me a deadline. I'm not going to drag my feet. And let me give you another kind of hard, cold fact. Social Security guys and gals who are assessing your case, if you don't fill out your forms or you never answer your phone, this is what they're thinking. Well, my goodness, this guy who's disabled, never at home. This guy who's disabled, I don't know what else he's got to do, but he obviously has no time to fill out these forms. And that's what they're thinking. You know, never answers his phone. Where is he? Where's, why is he never at home if he's disabled? What do you mean he can't fill out his form? What else has he got to do? He's not working. That's what they're thinking. Fill out the forms. Fill them out timely. If they ask you to go to a consultative exam, they're going to pay for it. All you got to do is get there. And here's another silly thing about that. If you don't have any transportation and you have to pay somebody to take you, they'll actually pay you back for the mileage. They make it about as easy on a claimant as they possibly can. And so it's baffling to me when so many of our clients, they just drop off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
They don't answer the phone. They don't fill out any forms. They don't go to the exams. And then they call us up 5 months later, and we've been trying to get them weekly, and they don't answer the phone. And they call us 5 months later. What's happening with my case?
Yeah.
Well, it was denied 4 months ago. What? Yeah. You didn't call anybody. You didn't answer your phone. You didn't do this. You didn't. Yeah, it's been denied.
Yeah, you don't have a case
Oh,
anymore.
well, Mr. Groves, let's just start another one. Well, you can start another one, but I'm not going to help you with it because, I have to pay my people to call you, to send letters. I have to pay them no matter what, whether you're answering or not.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do that over and over again. So, and good luck with another firm because, they're rarely as on top of things as we are, and they're going to be even less understanding about why you're not answering the phone or why you're not cooperating with Social Security. So that's number 2. Right underneath having ongoing regular treatment is cooperation, a spirit of cooperation.
Yeah, I spoke to a client, or I signed a client a few days ago, and he had just started his case, so he was in the stage where they just sent him all the forms to fill out.
Right.
And he was telling me that he hasn't gotten around to it yet because one of the main things keeping him out of work is his vision problems. I think he's a type 1 diabetic. I don't know if it's retinopathy or if it's a completely different vision thing. But anyway, he has some real trouble viewing the forms, looking, reading the forms. Sure. And I was listening to that, and I told him after I got everything we need, I was like, hey, man, this is going to be cutthroat, and you have a good reason for it. But if you don't fill those forms out at the time that they told you, you don't adhere to the deadline, they will probably just deny your case.
Yep.
You're telling me that you have vision problems, that you have a hard time reading and filling out the forms. I totally get that. I believe you about your vision problems. That's partially why I took the case. Social Security is just going to deny it if you don't fill it out on time. And so, yeah, just to your point about multiple other things we've talked about, it sounds cutthroat, but even, get someone to help you fill it out. At the end of the day, it's if you can't read it, just get someone to help you out.
Yeah.
Or if it takes a little bit longer and you have to use a magnifying glass, it sounds ridiculous, but you can't take 3 months to fill out a form that they gave you like a week or two for.
And just like that, they'll pay for the exam they want to send you to, and just like that, they're going to do pretty much as they legally can to help you. If you have told them that you have horrible vision problems, they do have a system which prints these forms, and I'm not joking. Normal 8.5 by 11, it'll look like a scroll.
Yeah.
It'll look, like Moses coming down off the mountain. It's a big scroll, and the print is like 18 font. Most prints 12, but it's 18 or 25. It's huge, and they'll send you the forms in this big paper with big print. Once again, they're probably going to remove any excuse you have, and that's something that we haven't really talked about. There's a difference between reasons and excuses.
Yeah.
And reasons are usually justified, and possibly going to get some grace for those. Excuses, on the other hand, are going to go nowhere with anybody. Not going to go anywhere with my firm. They're certainly not going to go anywhere with Social Security. You know, there are good reasons, and then you're just making an excuse.
Yeah.
You know,
So a good example of a reason for missing your appeal deadline, if you were denied and you missed the appeal deadline,
you're in jail. That's a
would
good one.
would be you were incarcerated,
Sure.
or you had a third heart attack and you were actually
Yeah.
hospitalized.
And Social Security would absolutely go with that. They'd be fine with that, and so would we. You know,
Yeah.
that's a reason.
And an excuse would be you had nothing to do. You were just watching TV,
Yeah.
and I just didn't get around to it. Haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
And it's been 3 months.
Or I expected my rep to fill out all my forms.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's my clever segue into number 3.
Okay.
Third down from the totem pole. So the first one, regular ongoing treatment. Second one, spirit of cooperation. You know, you're applying for disability. Let's go through the process. Don't just, roll your eyes at it. The third one, though, is remember that you are applying for disability and not ability. And that's extremely important for you to remember, because when you do fill out these forms, they're not designed to trick you, but they do ask questions about what you can do. And so if you are talking to somebody at Social Security, even a judge when we get that far, and they're asking you about household chores, and you tell them, well, yeah, I can do household chores. Oh, okay. Well, what about lawn work? Yeah, I can mow. Oh, okay. What about paying bills and staying on top of your household finances? Yeah, I do that. I'm waiting for something that shows that you're disabled, because the things that you're telling me or telling Social Security are not indicative of somebody who's disabled. They're indicative of somebody who's got ability. We're not applying for ability, we're applying for disability. So it is imperative that you talk about your limitations. You talk about your limitations with me and my staff, so we know exactly what's going on. And when I get in front of a judge, I can basically tell your story for you. You talk about your limitations to your doctors, so that when we read the medical records, we don't say, he has no problem doing household chores, doing the yard work. He has no problems doing household finances. No, you tell your doctor about your limitations. And then when we get in front of a judge, you tell the judge about your limitations, and you don't testify that you're able to do everything. The forms that you fill out, and we've talked about this before, the forms that you fill out early in the process, and you got to fill them out, again, cooperation. The forms that you fill out early in the process are just like sworn testimony when we go in front of the judge. So on a form, if you said, well, I can feed my dogs, I have some horses on my property, and I'm able to tend to them and brush them, and and I walk them around the track, and I do this and I do that and I do this and I do that, and blah 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 blah. You do, you can, you are, you're doing, and that form, and then you get in front of a judge, I can't do nothing. Well, the judge is going to say, well, Mr. Jones, about 18 months ago, you filled out this form, and you told me on this form that you take care of your horses. You still taking care of the horses? Well, yeah. Okay. You told me that you can feed other pets, like your dogs and stuff like that. You still got those dogs? Yeah. You feeding them? Well, not always, but yeah, I try. And all of a sudden, he's basically just testing you. Are you going to tell me today in the hearing the same stuff you told me when you filled out this form? And either way, it's horrible. So if they don't match,
Yeah.
early on, I can't do nothing. I can't feed my pets. I can't do. My wife's angry with me because I can't do any kind of household chores, and I can't be on my feet more than 5 minutes at a time. And it might all be true. And then for some reason, you get in front of a judge, and well, yeah, if I push myself, I could probably stand or walk for 3 or 4 hours. If I push myself, well, yeah. Social Security is going to expect you to push yourself, and therefore you're not disabled, and you just lost because You told them that you couldn't do anything back here, and then you get to a hearing and you told them, yeah, you could do it if you had to, or vice versa. Way back in the form, you said you could do all these things, but then you get in front of a judge, I can't do nothing. They need to be uniform. And the way that you do that is just remember what you're there for. We're applying for disability. So you don't want to put on a show. What I mean by that is you don't want to exaggerate. You certainly don't want to lie. You don't want to make things look worse than they actually are. You don't want to make them look better than they actually are. You want them to look like they actually are. Can you feed your pets? No. I forget all the time. My kids, my adult kids, are just getting on me because, the dog's always mad because I haven't fed him. Okay, all right. Are you able to? I heard you had some horses on your property. Are you able to take care of them? I had to sell them. I couldn't take care of them anymore. That's what a disabled person would say.
Yeah.
What about household chores? Something easy. You're standing at the sink. You're washing a few dishes. Standing at a sink. I can't stand for more than 5 minutes at a time. I might be able to wash one dish, and then I got to go sit down for half an hour. That's what a disabled person would say. What about something really, really difficult indoors, like laundry? Are you kidding me? Laundry? I couldn't do laundry if I had to. One, I couldn't concentrate to stay on it, and it would sour. If I was even able to get it into the dryer, I probably wouldn't turn the dryer on because my mind's somewhere else. That's what a disabled person would say. And you put that kind of stuff on a form early on, and then you get in front of a judge and you basically say the same thing. And it doesn't have to be exact, but you're saying the same thing. Well, that is what a disabled person would say. And that's what that's what I'm expecting as your representative. And that's certainly what Social Security is expecting. They're not expecting to see some kinds of form filling out that you can do everything. I can cook, I can clean, I can drive, I can shop, I can do household chores without any kind of problems. Well, why are you disabled then?
Yeah, you sound fine.
Yeah, they're not expecting to see that. They're expecting to see your limitations. And that's what I want to just impart on you for this number 3. Make sure that the Social Security Administration at every level, and so if they send you a form on the initial level, and then they send you the same darn thing on the reconsideration level, guess what I'm going to advise you to do? Fill it out. Please fill it out the same way. Make sure that the stuff is the same, unless it's changed. And then when we get in front of a judge, I'm going to read those forms, and I'll probably remind you of them before the hearing, about a week before the hearing. Hey, just remember, on your form you said da-da-da-da-da. Is that still the way it is, or has something changed? And if something's changed, we want to tell the judge that because, we want to be honest. But if it hadn't changed, make sure that you tell the judge the same thing that you put on your form, 14, 16, 18 months ago when the case was still at one of the lower levels. We are applying for disability. I expect to hear things out of you. I expect to see forms from you that indicate you are disabled.
Yeah, I think it stumps a lot of clients when we're talking about the activities of daily living, because what they're expecting when they apply for disability is just directly their medical stuff. I have arthritis.
Right.
My knees hurt. And then you hit them with, can you do laundry? Can you wash dishes? A lot of times that stumps them. They don't expect you to have to talk about that. But that's exactly what you need to talk about, because you're not just getting approved because you have arthritis, and you're not just getting approved because your knees hurt. You're getting approved because your symptoms are preventing you from being able to do these daily chores.
That's right.
And what you've talked about before is we wouldn't be able to ask a client, or Social Security would not really be able to ask a claimant how well they're able to work, because they're not working.
Yeah.
And so we substitute that. How well are you able to do daily chores?
Because that's as close as we're going to get. If you're not working, we're going to try to get daily activities, which are tasks that pretty much every household is responsible for. And of course, you're not going to be able to do everything that the way you used to. I always tell my clients, I said, make sure that you let your providers know, make sure that you let Social Security know that if you do chores and you do tasks that you used to do, you don't do them as quickly as you used to. You don't do them as completely or accurately as you used to. And then there are those some things that you just can't do. My adult son has to do it for me, or I have a neighbor who is, has a heart of gold, and they come over twice a week and they're able to do this because I can't do it at all. That's what disabled people say.
Yeah.
I don't do it as good as I used to. I don't do it as quickly as I used to, and then there are some things I can't do at all. Well, if you were to just translate all of that into work activity, I don't do it as good as I used to. Okay. All right, so what you're saying is that you're not accurate and you're going to be making some mistakes. Bosses will allow that for maybe a few hours, and then you won't be coming back tomorrow. I don't do it as quickly as I used to do. Well, every job on planet Earth, every single one, has an expected pace to it. I expect you in 8 hours to complete 8 hours worth of work, and I'm the one, as the boss or the employer or the business, I'm the one who has done the research to say, this is what 8 hours should be able to accomplish. Wait a minute, you don't do things as quickly as you used to? No, it would take me twice as long. Okay, well, you're fired.
That's a problem. Yeah.
That's right, you're fired. And then there are some things I can't do at all. Okay, well, when a boss finds out that there are some things that he's hired you to do and you can't do them, guess what? Once again, you're fired. You are disabled.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a person comment on one of our videos. I don't remember what video it was, but they said that they went a year without doing laundry because it was so difficult for them to do laundry.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would probably read that and ask, like, what on earth does that have to do with a disability case? That has everything to do with the disability case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just, reps like me being clever and stuff like that. If I wasn't to say a word in a hearing, if I wasn't to ask you about anything, guarantee that the judge is going to ask you about cooking, cleaning, shopping, driving, laundry, pretty much any household chore. Can you do some light dusting? Can you do sweeping? What about mopping? Who does your dishes if you're not allowed to do dishes? If I don't ask those questions, I can guarantee you the judge is going to, because exactly what you said. Since they don't have any kind of work activity you're doing, they're going to get as close as they can, and activities of daily living, daily household chores, that whether you do them or not, they're expected in all households.
Yeah.
If you live in a place that has a kitchen, it's expected that you're going to have some dirty dishes, forks and knives and stuff like that need to be cleaned. If you're wearing clothes, which you should be.
Hopefully, yeah.
You're going to have to do laundry, or somebody's going to have to help you with laundry. If you're just living, you're going to expect people to straighten up every once in a while, or you straighten up every once in a while. And there's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with telling Social Security, yeah, I do it. It takes me 5 times as long as it used to, and it's a pathetic job compared to what I used to do. Man, I used to, keep a spotless house. We're talking white glove. You wouldn't find any dust. And that's a joke now. There's no way that I could even dust, but I try to straighten up, and it takes me forever to do it. That's what a disabled person would say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. Do you want to do a little recap?
Yeah, I'll do my little recap.
Do a recap.
These are the tipper top most ones. They're not all of them, because there are some other things. But the tipper top one, get in and stay in regular ongoing treatment. And that could be with PCP. It could be with a specialist if you have the money for it. It could be psychiatrist, or a therapist, or a psychologist, or a case manager at a mental health facility. Treatment is treatment is treatment. If you go to a family medical practice, and you always see the physician's assistant, the PA, that's fine. That's good. Social Security looks at them the same way they look at doctors. Well, I only see, the registered nurse. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's all right. It's treatment. It's documented. They've come in for this. This is how we're going to treat them, try to help them with their problems. That's medical evidence that I can prove. So get in, stay in, ongoing treatment for your conditions. Second thing, have a cooperative spirit. And that's with everybody. That's with my office, my company, and that's with Social Security. Social Security, asks you to fill out forms, do it. They ask you to fill out forms in 2 weeks, do it. They ask you to go to a consultative exam that they're going to foot the bill for, do it. My case managers ask you to talk to your doctor about get a medical source statement, do it. My case managers say, I need to hear from you, more often than I'm hearing from you. Give us a call like every 2 or 3 weeks. Do it. Have a cooperative spirit. I mean, you're applying for disability, and everybody in the process expects you to be cooperative. We expect it. Social Security expects it. Make it easy on yourself by actually having that cooperative spirit. And then the third one, when you're talking to us, when you're talking to your providers, when you're talking to Social Security, you are applying for disability. We need to hear things that a disabled person would say. We are not applying for ability. So I don't want to hear that you're able to do this, and I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do this. We want to hear, I can't do this, I can't do this, I don't do this as fast as I used to. I do this, but I make mistake after mistake after mistake. That's what a disabled person would say, and that's what we want to hear.
All right. That's a good wrap up.
All right.
If you have a question about your disability case, drop it in the comment section below, and we will do our best to answer it in the next episode.